What do Kurt Cobain, Vincent van Gogh, Virginia Woolf, Franz Kafka have in common? Well, they were all great artists of their time and they all killed themselves. Sad, isn't it? And there are many more artists, literary geniuses in the world who thought they were not good enough. And yet they published some of the best works the entire world remembers till date. But they could not bear the insanity, the absurdity of life, and they took their own lives. One such literary genius is Sylvia Plath, who I've been obsessed with for quite some time now. And it was not because she killed herself, but because of the way she wrote about depression and everyday drudgery that shook me to the core. Her analogy, the fig tree analogy, is a very famous one and very often quoted in literary works. And when I read it for the first time, I was blown away. The fig tree analogy is an excerpt from her book, her only novel called The Bell Jar, which I'll be reviewing or I'll be giving a brief summary of in some time. But let's talk a little bit about Sylvia Plath. She killed herself at the age of 30. And that's not the most remarkable thing about her, but something about it just cannot be shaken away. She first tried to kill herself in 1953, but she was saved from that attempt, and that became her inspiration for writing the novel The Bell Jar. In about the next 3 years, she married to Ted Hughes, who was another um, artist, another writer of that generation, and he was also very brilliant. But Sylvia Plath always thought that Ted Hughes was way better than her, and she always sought his validation. Um, Ted Hughes' infidelity was a big cause in their marriage ending and her depression deepening. She has dealt with depression, mental health issues her entire life, and her works, like her collected poems like Ariel, Daddy, and a couple of other poems, were awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature way after her death in 1982. So it's very, very tragic to read about such people and know that in their lifetime they could never know how genius they were, right? It's a very famous fact about Sylvia Plath, the myriad ways she tried to kill herself. And one of the ways was when, in one fine morning, her children were sleeping in their apartment, and she tried to burn herself by putting her head in the oven. And I was blown away by that fact. I was very, very disturbed. But anyway, her life, the way her writing was, forced me to pick the book The Bell Jar, which I have with me right now. It's a story about Esther Greenwood. She's 19 years old and she has lived her entire life in New England, which is a part of Connecticut in the US. And she's a brilliant student. She's a great academic. All her teachers love her. And she ends up getting a very prestigious internship at a fashion magazine firm in New York. So she gets to travel to a completely big city, the glamour city, and live the life that a lot of girls of that age only could dream. She got to share a big hot hotel with few of the other girls who came from rich families, and she saw glamour, parties, lavish lunches up close. You'd think that she has got it all, but deep inside, she felt dead and she felt that this lifestyle was kind of draining her. She couldn't keep up with it. Um, she made a friend with Doreen, who came from money, and she was very accustomed to this kind of lavish lifestyle, and they were very much in contrast. She once accompanied her to a party and saw her make out with another guy, and she felt the urge to just run away from that party and bury herself back in her apartment in a bathtub, feeling the world quieten down outside her. Um, Over the course of that internship, over the course of next week that she stayed in New York, she tried to date a lot of men, but she found them very hypocritical, and she just didn't find it fulfilling, the men with their fake, superficial ways to flirt with women. She was looking for something deep and meaningful, although that's not exactly how it's written in the book. But she was also on her quest to lose her virginity on her own terms, not by how the society dictates, by getting married and having a husband. So, in all this while, she also had a suitor named Buddy Willard, who was constantly pursuing her to marry her, but she was somehow turned off by him because she knew that this guy is just going to tame me and make me a housewife and take away all my talents. So, Sylvia Plath writes about the very limited choices that women had in that time. And Esther Greenwood, our main protagonist, ponders this question every now and then. Is she meant for that domestic life, or should she live her life on her own terms, chase her dreams? And the societal oppression was eating her from inside. And that's how the depression worsened. On her last night in New York, she went out on a blind date with a guy named Marco, and turns out she was raped. That trauma she just couldn't handle that trauma, and she went back to her mother's place in New England, Connecticut, which is her hometown. And now she's trying to live away from that whole hustle bustle New York lifestyle, but finds that the depression has followed her here as well. She had actually applied for a writing competition or a writing course, but she couldn't make it. And she sunk into the throes of depression even further. I'm going to read an excerpt that I found really, really raw, and captures the essence of what she was going through. This is in chapter 11. I saw the days of the year stretching ahead like a series of bright white boxes, and separating one box from another was sleep, like a black shade. Only for me, the long perspective of shades that set off one box from the next had suddenly snapped up, and I could see the day after day after day glaring ahead of me like a white, broad, infinitely desolate avenue. It seemed silly to wash one day when I would only have to wash again the next. She is so frustrated with having to take a bath, that she doesn't want to take a bath, and this is how she's describing the drudgery of it. It made me tired just to think of it. I want to do everything once and for all and be through with it. This is a very beautiful line. And so her mother decides to sign up for a psychiatrist for Esther to see. This psychiatrist recommends electric shock therapy as a treatment for depression for Esther. What? I was shocked. I mean, is this even legal? But then I don't know. I haven't done enough research about it. But probably in the book, it seems like it was fairly very common practice in those days. So we're just going to take their word for it. And she goes through an electric shock therapy suggested by the psychiatrist. The situation worsens, and after that was the first time she tries to take her own life. She somehow survives, and she's then moved to a mental asylum where she meets a couple of people who try to take advantage of her in some way or the other. Even though she does try to befriend some people, she has some sanity restored, but then after how a person who she befriends tries to betray her by sexually exploiting her, she loses entire faith in humanity yet again. During this entire course, she does end up losing her virginity to a maths professor somewhere. yeah, a random string of events. But in the end, um, she is again dreadful of the bell jar that she is living in. The bell jar is a metaphor of her life being a prison, an entrapment of all the things that she wants to follow, but she cannot because the air inside it has kept her safe, and yet she doesn't. I mean, she's not able to tell she's inside a prison, but actually she is, and she's not able to break through. And that's how the book gets its name. But yeah, it's a very, very tragic book. I was drawn to it because it describes depression so well. I have underlined so many lines on it. I keep going back to those lines because they describe my feelings so well. um, and it is a cautionary tale. It can be taken as a cautionary tale for a lot of people to, see that if you're troubled inside in your head, just know that it is the human condition, that people who feel deeply and want to do a lot of things do feel overwhelmed and hopeless, but don't let the despair take over you. There's a lot of things that life can offer, very good things, if you just hang in there and wait for the good things to come. Sylvia Plath remains one of my best authors forever.